All right. So I look a little funny on this one, kind of like, hey, what's going on? This is a fisheye view. And one thing I want to express to everyone is that what I'm about to do is not exactly very easy, but at the same time, it's important for everyone to recognize that, wow, I do look really fat. But in general, human beings that film content and have something to say should really just say it. The more you prepare, the more you prep, the more you overthink the content, it really affects it in a negative way, not in a positive way. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't plan notes or take a little bit of time, but you really should not hesitate. And that hesitation will only grow exponentially, which is a big word for basically it'll multiply. And the reason why I say this is because, as you notice, I don't allow anyone to make a comment. I don't allow anyone to profit from my channel, and that includes myself. The reason why I do this is because I believe that we live in a world where too many people consume content without creating content. And one thing that I've really had the pleasure of seeing are my two boys growing up in a digital world where human beings are not really told whether or not they should create content or not. It's a natural process that happens for some people and it doesn't happen for other people. So I felt like it would be a good idea to see, like right here, I'm holding my audience in my hands. It's a visceral process, but what it does is it allows me to maintain relative image, an illusion of control. Sorry. I have really bad heartburn. I've been dealing with some digestional issues, not too much TMI. But in general, I think that what I was trying to express to everyone is I haven't seen my boys. Tomorrow will be 12 months. The reason why I say this is because I wanted to tell everyone a story about something that happened last winter, and I realized it wasn't last winter. It was a winter and a half ago, or 2 winters ago, technically. Although it might have been 16 to 18 months ago, it feels like it was a lifetime ago. And my boys and I and Mallory, we were in Vermont, and it was at the end of the winter, so it was like 16 months ago. That's it. And Pierce and Drake started to get really into creating their own content. And it was really adorable for me as someone who, I don't know, I don't pride myself in anything. I don't make a dollar on this. Relatively, I think that most people find this channel to be pretty embarrassing and not exactly in the context of what you expect from a YouTube person. And I recognize this. And that's one of the things that I pride myself on, is that I continue to maintain continuity, double negative, or whatever that is. Meaning that no matter how much criticism, laughter, or negative words people say about this channel, I will continue to publish the content in free form as it comes to me in a natural way. Many people have criticized this channel, being that they believe that they know what I should do. Even though I'm an adult, I live in a type of world where human beings choose to tell me what I am supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do. And they use my circumstances of being a victim of multi-million-dollar frauds left and right as a consensus to basically say, you're completely insane. All you do is film these YouTube videos. You don't work. And that's only if you take out the fact that I've been a victim of over a dozen frauds that account for almost 80 to $250 million, 82 million to 250 million, depending on which math you use. Personally speaking, I know that I was making millions of dollars a year, paying my taxes, 2019, 2020, and it wasn't until the frauds against me became unmanageable and the people that I have loved and cared for and dedicated my trust, loyalty to, all turned around and stabbed me in the back. And the reason why they did this is because they were very much financially motivated. I recognize this now. It took me a couple of years to recognize just how much the people who pretended to love me actually hated me. Why they hated me, you can ask them yourselves. But in my world, all I care about is my boys, my future with them, and trying to get every minute that I can of sanity. And I don't do any drugs. I don't like these rumors, but I feel that the more that I talk about it, the more I seem like a crazy person that continues to allude to something. And the illusion or alludation, I'm not really sure how to use that word, is solely based on an insecurity that I've developed after being criticized endlessly for a very long time, over a decade, by people who I truly believed loved me. And I believed that in such a wholehearted way that even as they were robbing me and taking everything, including my children, my home, all of my possessions, I still tried to do the right thing. I no longer can do that, meaning that what I believe is the right thing might not seem like the right thing to you. But as my boys showed me, that content can be created absolutely anywhere. When I watched the actual reality of how much love and dedication my boys had to creating content, I realized that whether or not they choose to follow in my footsteps and enjoy creating content for the world around them, it doesn't change the fact that they're gravitating naturally to this. And my favorite part of the vacation was, I remember when, one second, let me open this up. I remember when Pierce discovered, Pierce is absolutely adorable. Drake is very funny in his own right, but Pierce is the love of my life. Drake, I love you, buddy, but I can only handle so much criticism from a 12-year-old at this point. But when it comes to Pierce, he sat down in front of a pellet stove, and it's one of those, self-feeding pellet fireplaces. And he was kind of wet from playing outside, and he was like, had all the snowsuit on and everything. He barely could even sit down in his tiny rocking chair. Takes out his phone, so sweaty, rosy cheeks, and hits the record button, looks at the camera and goes, "All right, guys, apparently I didn't know this, but fireplaces can work on many things." And he shows this pellet stove, and he identifies himself as a human being who is teaching the world about all the things that they don't know about. And it's so cute because it's true. The things that a child doesn't know is far more interesting than what an adult does know. And I want to segue that into the reality of what you're about to hear. Not only do you not know it, your brain will not accept the reality of what I'm about to tell you. And the reason why I wanted to make this an isolated video is because over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be submitting some of the most jaw-dropping and history-changing videos. But as you can see, I'm just one individual traveling around the East Coast, and right now I have to get on federal territory because what we're dealing with is potential murderers. Human beings who are willing to go so far in order to bend the truth, in order to get whatever weird agenda that they have going on. And that's one of the things that makes this entire narrative extremely disturbing, is that one thing everyone needs to remember is that whether or not you choose to believe in deductive reasoning, study the art of detective work, or even be a fan of mystery novels, one of the most primary things that every investigative journalist or detective will tell you is that you do not twist the facts to suit a narrative, but you change the narrative based on the facts that you have identified. So let's identify the facts of what we do know about Judge Esther Salas, Roy Den Hollander, and what is currently the most salacious conspiracy possibly in the United States. Why? At the time of the actual, now, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, let me give you a little bit of a background. My name is Daniel M. Reeses. I put away that piece of shit, Bob Menendez. This is one of the worst human beings on earth. Please understand that he has eroded the trust of the American public via what he calls his right as whatever insanity. I want to remind everyone that Senator Bob Menendez covered up a murder. Yes, that is correct, a murder. His wife, Nadine Menendez, the one that's doing 4.5 years in federal prison, killed a human being who was crossing the road. She was driving under the influence. That is why she needed a new Mercedes. The former chief of police, because of Bob Menendez's phone call, showed up, covered up the whole thing. Now, that being said, I also want to remind everyone that the actual attorney who was representing Bob Menendez's co-defendant was Ricardo Solano Jr. of Gibbons Law. Now, Ricardo Solano Jr. was the Attorney General for the state of New Jersey for the Economic Crime Division. He is a very good friend of Judge Esther Salas and Bob Menendez. Now, that being said, please understand that everyone in New Jersey was totally okay with a former Attorney General and former prosecutor of white-collar crimes defending a co-defendant of Bob Menendez. Me personally, I wanted to vomit. I was there. And I want to remind everyone that The husband of the unfortunate disaster that happened allegedly in 2020, July 20th, actually, to tell you the truth, 7/20/2020. Clear. Now, Mark Enderle, who is the father of this unfortunate travesty that unfolded on July 20th, he was present and he wrote a very touching letter on behalf of Senator Bob Menendez. And that really goes to show you that human beings who are aligned with individuals who choose to commit crimes will completely ignore the actions of the criminals in order to favor the positive things they've done. Politicians are very, very sneaky individuals. They will make you believe that right is wrong and wrong is right and illegal is legal, and the rules only apply to those that are not named Senator Bob Menendez. That being said, where am I going with all this? Let me express to you that what I'm about to tell you is very, very new. It's fresh. So one thing I want to express to everyone is that I do not make any accusations against anyone until the facts are fully released. But when you talk about a conspiracy theory that truly will change the face of the world, you first need to explain what is the significance. Now, one thing you need to understand is there's something called the National Coalition for Men's Rights. That is a relatively powerful yet not that well-known organization that represents the interests of men to equalize the playing field, because over the last 40 years, women's rights have completely bulldozed any sense of equality. The original women's rights movement stemmed from equality. They really, and when I say they, I say political powers who use women's inequality to further an agenda. Most of the people were men or women who already had plenty of rights and money, but please remember that in the United States of America, you need to have a reason to earn that money. Given that there is a very strong motivation behind women having the right to... All right, sorry. All right, guys, I am back. Essentially, let's get the facts straight. In 1992, 3 years after Judge Esther Salas meets or gets together with Senator Bob Menendez, she finds herself graduating or pre-graduation at the Essex County Prosecutor's Office in 1992. That is where she meets her future husband. They're both former prosecutors. Everyone that's involved in this case has some association with the prosecutor's office. And the reason why I say this is because the Essex County Prosecutor's Office was also the first on the scene at the murder of Daniel Aldrin. Now, one thing you need to understand is that this is a complicated case. I might not be able to get all the facts out coherently, but let's start with the basics. On July 11, 2020, the vice president of the National Coalition for Men's Rights was allegedly killed via a ruse of a Trojan horse UPS driver, whatever. I say whatever and I brush it over because the facts have not been released. This man is not a federal judge, has absolutely no reason why the facts were never released, but let's gloss over that, pretend that didn't happen. That man represented the National Coalition for Men's Rights, which is the most important case Judge Esther Salas has ever tried over. She has many, many cases that she has done, but some of the most famous include Teresa Giudice, and believe it or not, her husband got 42 months and she only got 15 months. Men getting more time than women. Don't know the facts. We'll look into it in a little bit. Then there is the Newark Bloods. And one thing you must understand is that a judge who, whether or not she lives in Essex County, I don't really know. But let's say that she lives in Essex County. The Newark Bloods are in Essex County. This woman is responsible for putting away some of the most dangerous gangsters in Essex County, and she has no protection at her home. That does not make any sense to me. But that's okay. Let's continue. Allegedly, a 72-year-old man who is an active attorney, has never committed any acts of violence, and has no motive whatsoever, somehow went to California while being stricken with terminal cancer, orchestrated this scheme in order to kill someone who had very little motivation to kill, then allegedly drove across country in less than 8 days with a firearm, proceeded to go to Judge Salas's house, which still is a mystery of how he was able to know where she lives, but it's okay. and proceeded to not kill her, but kill her son, unfortunately, and really wound her husband. Then, when the prosecutor's office arrived, and the FBI and the marshals, there was no national manhunt that was publicly made known to the people of the tri-state area. So what law enforcement wants us to believe is that for 24 hours, there was an active shooter gunman that could have killed anyone because he wasn't identified. And he was the lead counsel for the National Coalition for Men's Rights in their case for selective services systems. The Jane Doe, basically this man, Roy Den Hollander, and the National Coalition for Men's Rights actually won a monumental case which essentially said that women should also be a part of the draft or have to be forced to register, or men should not be forced to register. Logically, this makes perfect sense, but please understand there's very strong motive behind men being the only ones drafted. Let's say there is an agenda for women to have some sort of a nefarious upper leg of power in the judicial and political systems of the current modern geopolitical climate. A very, very easy way to get a massive leg up is to create a war and send every young man imaginable to their death. And whether or not this is a realistic scenario, it is a plausible scenario. I am not saying this is what is going on. What I'm saying is there's absolutely zero evidence to refute what I am saying on YouTube, which is the facts need to immediately come out. The American public deserves an answer on what the fuck is going on. There is strong reason. I have had people that believe that this kid Daniel is actually in Cuba being hid by some sort of a democratic agenda while his mother and his father orchestrated this. I don't believe this. I cannot believe that a federal judge and her husband, who are both in the prosecutor's office, would ever do something like this. But I also cannot understand why none of the facts were ever released about the California murder of a man who had nothing to do with the case, allegedly, while at the same time, Roy Den Hollander in 2019 left that case. The reason why I find it interesting is because both the New York Times and the Associated Press has painted Roy Den Hollander with having a personal agenda and filing this litigation on his own behalf as a pro se litigant. That is not true. He is a barred and licensed attorney who was offering his services pro bono to the organization. And that's a major fact that people are simply overlooking. Now, one can easily say, oh my God, bro, get a handle on it. Take care of your family, take care of your kids. But please understand, this is my family and kids. The reason why I've had my children taken away from me is because Judge Esther Salas is 100%, in my opinion, behind a group of women that are anti-male rights. And I am not a male rights advocate. I actually had no idea this shit ever existed. I promise you, the only time I ever heard of any of this is like Harris used to talk about Livingston dads and men's rights and stuff, and I was like very confused because I always thought that men had all the rights. But it wasn't until I tried to file a restraining order I realized that not only was I allowed to file it, all the facts that are part of my life are being twisted and morphed and used against me in order to paint me as some sort of a psychotic man. And this guy's name is D.E.N. Hollander, but he goes by Dan Hollander. And I truly believe that Judge Esther Salas wouldn't even see me for over 4.5 years since I filed. She processed that case on a national level in the 4 years. These are psychotic women haters, I guess, as she's planting them to be. The case is about women having equal rights as men. People don't really understand a couple of other factors. Number one, I think Esther Salas is Jewish. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with anything, but I fully understand Jewish women because I was raised by them, especially ones that are like, and I'm not saying she is or she isn't. I'm just saying that the Cuban American population is riddled with former communists and former ex-Soviet patriots who align themselves with socialism, communism, and are Jewish. So if that's the case, please understand that when I speak about Judaism, I am speaking openly as a human being that understands the religion, that understands the plight of the Jewish immigrant, and also understands how manipulative Jewish women are. Now, This man, Roy Den Hollander, never had a single incident. And the reason why I continue to repeat that is because a human being who literally has never been cited for a single thing does not, at the age of 72, decide to go on a murder spree. And if he does, being his background of former espionage, law, Columbia law graduate, and only married one time with no children, this is a man of discipline. He would finish the job that he started. And in order to go through that much labor and not actually execute the judge that he was trying to do. And now this is a very difficult subject to talk about. I don't think anyone really understands the amount of guts that it takes for me to go. And obviously I had to go to a protected area because why wouldn't people try to kill me who are being exposed for what is the most insane political corruption conspiracy possible? Now, the reason why I say this is because once the facts come out, I'll be the first one to say, look, this is why transparency is so important, is because the circumstances that have been created will definitely look horrible on Judge Salas if she doesn't come forward, make a statement immediately, release the facts, and the FBI / whoever was in charge of this hocus pocus investigation express what the fuck happened in California, how no one in New Jersey knew that the vice president of the biggest case of this federal judge's life was murdered 7 days before it happened, why there was no police coverage at her home. How does this man go on a one-day killing spree after he kills Judge Salas and they know about him and no one in the public is made aware of this? How does Mirna Drace Perez be the lead investigator on all of my cases? How am I, Daniel M. Reeses, who took out Senator Bob Menendez, being targeted to a point where I have had my home, my children, all of my property, my even knife collection taken away from me? I've been arrested 7, 8, 9 times. Almost all the charges have completely dropped, and I couldn't figure out why until I finally made this video. On behalf of Project Ghost, the Office of the President of the United States, and every single human being that's ever been bullied by a human being who stuck a piece of paper on their wall, the time for bullshit has ended. It is time for the age of the logic revolution to start. Please, ladies and gentlemen, you can call me crazy, you can laugh at me, but do not deny the facts that you have all bought into the biggest pile of bullshit imaginable while laughing at me as I try to do everything humanly possible to save your asses. Don't worry. I still got it done. Boys, I love you. Stay strong. Always be yourself. And God bless America. Because this is the greatest fucking country in the world. Oh, that was an intense segment. So I was thinking about it a little bit. And I realized that I think that one of the reasons why you, my loving and faithful audience, believe that I am crazy or there's something wrong with me is not because you actually believe that, is because you don't want to accept the reality of the things that I'm saying. So for example, for the people that have known me, my wife, and my children for the last 12 to 25 years, obviously you don't want to believe that the most perfect couple in the tri-state area, this little Jewish Russian boy and the beautiful girl from Long Island, would ever be living in the house of horrors. I recognize this. I understand that it's not convenient for you to believe that a federal judge is behind a really sinister conspiracy, which I still don't have all the facts about because it is so fucking confusing. But it's true. Everything that I've said is true. At the current moment, there are about 6 female judges and another dozen female attorneys and one absolutely horrible human being known as Smorrow. Matthew Smorrow or something like that. Basically, you know, there's like some cursory research that I was forced to do on the subject of the walkaway wife, which is an Instagram narrative which essentially teaches women how to fuck their husbands over for whatever. Remember, every case is different. There's certain women who actually have abusive husbands, and perhaps this information is good for it. But I'm not an abusive husband, nor did I don't even fuck with anything like that. I can't even understand the perspective of dudes that abuse women, let alone the fact that I've been marginalized and put into some weird box where I have to excuse every action that I do. Speaking of which, the subject of the walkaway wife was only in my head because I couldn't understand what the motivating factor behind the demise of my entire marriage, or even a possibility of a friendship post-divorce, which I always thought was like, if you don't like someone, you could just get divorced. You don't have to do all of this insane things, meaning that I've lost sight of the motivation of my adversary to a point where it's not that I care or I don't care, except that this content that I film about a national narrative about a judge and her cohorts or cronies allows me to deal with the trauma that I've had to endure by being illegally separated from my children. I needed to find a reason for why. What is the motivation behind all of these judges fucking me over and breaking the law at the same time? Now, I have done absolutely nothing wrong. I promise you this. I have been made to believe as though I have done something wrong via this YouTube channel. And it wasn't until I'm able to produce this content and explain to everyone, look, I know you don't want to believe this, but there's something very sinister and very wrong behind the Esther Salas dead son narrative. Not only does it not make sense, her biggest case of her career is this case involving the selective services systems. Please understand that this is $1 trillion question. What is the value of forcing women to join a draft? And the real answer stems from how much different would the female race act in the eyes of warmongering if they were subject to a national draft? Because the last time I checked, the majority of the human beings that are running the democratic socialist movement are female, a big chunk of them. There are men involved, but women are really behind this. And the women that are inventing stories about me being some sort of misogynist stand to gain a lot by keeping me silent and not expressing to the world that, hey, you might not really believe what I'm saying, based especially on the response of how little people care about being in a country that is fully supportive of some of the most evil things that may or may not be true. But I will tell you what is true is that the coincidences have piled up to the point where I do not believe what is going on. I do believe that there is something that the American public is not made aware of. And one of the reasons for that is because I will be testing the system out by reaching out to the Men's Coalition, the National Coalition for Men's Rights. Now, if what I suspect is true, and this is an organization that is caught in the crosshairs of a horribly illegal narrative, well, then they have nothing to worry about. But if there is some truth in the counter argument, and that the president, not the vice president that was murdered or assassinated, but the president of the National Coalition for Men's Rights, who was not touched, lives only 3 hours away from the gentleman that was murdered, he stood to gain a lot more than you think. And he is from Alaska, where hunting, survival skills, and using of a firearm are second nature, whereas Southern California, it is not nearly as prevalent. These are educated men. These are men who were part of the largest male-female case in the history of the United States. Yet no one raised a red flag about the quantity or the lack thereof of public information that was disseminated. Whoops, okay, her son was killed and that's it. That's just the way it is. And she's going to continue sitting on the bench. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Coalition for Men's Rights actually won that case. And one thing you must understand is that I still do not know whether or not Roy Den Hollander was a victim or the perpetrator. And every minute that goes by without a public denouncement of this channel or the facts being disseminated to the American public as to the exact timeline, why we who live in the people of the tri-state area were not made aware that there was an armed psychopath that was on the loose for an entire day. Who is this to protect? Please understand that the identity was already found, but it doesn't make sense. There's zero motive for this man to have killed these individuals after spending 30 years working within the confines of the legal system. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to go kill someone, you don't have to spend 30, 40 years studying to be an attorney, filing dozens of legitimate claims, working your butt off, finishing Columbia, being a spy, working for espionage, legal, think tanks, everything imaginable. And the point of what I'm saying is, please, spare me the narrative that I am the crazy one, where it is you, the American public, who have just continued to believe in bullshit because it is convenient for you, because I am the person who's saying this. The gentleman who you least expect. 7 summers in a row, I have been involved in the most primed, #1 national narratives. That is mathematically impossible, let alone the fact that I'm a non-college graduate. I pretty much am hated by every human being I've ever met at this point for God knows what. And truthfully, I've been kicked in the balls by and stabbed in the back by even my closest of friends and family. Why? Because they believe that I am not human. They believe that my accomplishments, my track record, and my general bulletproof persona make me invulnerable to hate, criticism, pain, embarrassment, and all of the emotions that I've had to tolerate over the last 5 years, ever since I've decided to go public on YouTube. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I love everyone, but there comes a time where sorry, just having some technical difficulties. There comes a time in everyone's life where they need to look in the mirror, as I was saying, and they need to either turn this channel off, move on with their lives, and never read a single news article because you're being lied to. The most juiciest, salacious, all the puns imaginable, and important national narrative is not only being suppressed by every algorithm imaginable. You, the audience, does not understand why not a single article has ever been printed about any of this. Yet you find it fascinating that you are the only one that understands it. You fool. There are tens of thousands of humans that watch the video within hours of it going up. The quantity of downloads multiplies by the tens, if not hundreds of humans that get the video disseminated. There are private servers in the thousands that rack the videos up, and they're being watched all over the world. My name is Daniel M. Rietzes. Please, I am one of the most resilient and hardest working individuals. I have done everything I humanly can and sacrificed everything imaginable so I can get my children back, clear my name, and be the man who I've been my entire life. No matter how many people want to stop me, no matter how many people want to reject the truth, and no matter how many people want to deny all the amazing things I've done for them, including my cousins, my brother, my mom, my wife, my ex-wife, whatever the fuck you want to call yourselves, please spare me the bullshit of reinventing history. My grandfather was one of the greatest men imaginable. My father was really mentally ill. I remember just going to Disney and not being able to be comfortable anywhere because I didn't know when the next time he's going to explode. And I took care of him for the rest of his life, including buying him a kidney. I am who I am. My track record speaks for itself. And excuse me for not wanting to be around people because I know that my success comes, goes every day, up and down. It doesn't matter. But you know what doesn't change? Me, my brain, my heart, my balls, my word, my literally. I am a man of code and honor. I will never be broken. Everything you have done has only humiliated you, the enemy of the state. Why? Because I represent the interests of the American public. Think about what I'm doing. I am being lambasted, destroyed, robbed, humiliated. And what do? I put all that to the side and say the American public need me. I don't care how much I get laughed at. Please understand that I've just exposed what is potentially the greatest, most complicated, and unbelievable political conspiracy in U.S. history. My name is Daniel M. Rietzes. I hope you all can enjoy this one because this is only the second one. I have 22 more to go. Now that feels great. And I don't know if this is a sign off or I still have more to say, but the truth is that you can only digest so much truth because you've been living a spoon-fed world of bullshit and you've been enjoying it on a daily basis like Frosted Flakes. And now the truth is there. It's not out there. This isn't X-Files. There's no alien conspiracies. You've got some of the most sinister and unbelievably motivated actors putting on judges' robes, wearing political hats, and running the country while simultaneously breaking every law imaginable and lying to you, the American public, in order to maintain their political powers. Please understand that the reason why these people haven't been caught is because their motivation is not money. It is power. The power that is retained after your child is tragically killed is unparalleled to anything. There's no one that says shit to Judge Salas because she has gone through some of the worst travesties or travesty imaginable. And I agree with that. Only if the truth is not morphed in order for her to benefit in any way of this travesty. And if that is the case, that is some of the worst, most sinister actions imaginable. Ooh, it stinks. I got to cover my nose. It's so disgusting. But I am praying that it's not true. And I'm also hoping that simultaneously that the American public is able to come to rest with this issue, because the political fallout of the ramifications of this case of the selective services system, which is worth trillions of dollars in government contracts and ripple effects, if this case is manipulated via false narrative, then people are going to go to jail for the rest of their lives, and there will be complete erosion of trust in the American people. I do not know how to say this any other way, so I'll just slow down. I don't care if you think I'm crazy anymore. I know I'm not. I haven't seen my boys in almost a year. Selectively, based on random chances, I saw them maybe 2 or 3 days, maybe 5 for Pierce. I'm broken inside. The people like Judge Salas, Judge Cacciola, Judge Matos Wilson, and a slew of Judge Levine, and a slew of other judges I don't feel like mentioning anymore. They are instrumental in the destruction of me and my children, as well as Jamie and her children. Those are 5 minors. We are good parents. We did nothing wrong. Jamie is an incredible mom, an unbelievable human being. And whether or not you believe that she hasn't touched a sip of anything in almost a year, I don't really care anymore, because I know that at this point, the motivation to silence us is so grand, because the actual winners of this whole thing are going to be our children, who will no longer live in a world of lies where they have to eat shit, all because they need to be approved of by the 2 parents that Jamie and I said, you know what? You guys are really fucked up. And because we were outspoken, and because we didn't want to take the abuse anymore, the system turned around on us, because Jamie and I do not have the resources. And a lot of that has to do with our exes banding together and stealing money and destroying our ability to make a living. Jamie has now a fabricated criminal record, a Google result, which is even worse than a background check, because there humans make up their own minds. And I assure you, human beings will gravitate towards the worst of scenarios. These actions conducted by Mallory and Jared have destroyed Jamie's ability to make a living, and they've destroyed my ability to function as a human being. I hope that in time, you will recognize that me, as a calm individual, clearly showing you that I am not only able to deliver to you on a silver platter one of the most complicated and sinister conspiracy theories. Honestly, guys, I don't even know what to call it anymore. You like the whole guys thing? That's in honor of my boys. I love you guys so much. Not the audience. You guys are idiots. I'm talking about my 2 boys. I love you guys. I hope one day everyone can look back at this and realize the amount of sacrifice and dedication Jamie and I have put into the legal process, taken its course, and not buying into some narrative where we are insane or vigilantes trying to cause a disruption in our children's lives. And I hope everyone has seen that not only is that not true, the destruction that is done by the lies spoken by Jared Resnick and Mallory, my own wife, someone who I thought that I can trust for the rest of my life. I'm the idiot. It has taken me a year to say that, but I'm a fucking idiot. I love this girl more than anything, and I know that anyone else would be watching this and laughing at me, but I was so in love with her. I would do anything for Mallory. But as Meatloaf once famously said, I don't do coke every day, so leave me alone. No, I'm just kidding. Meatloaf never said that. But Meatloaf did say, I will do anything for love, but I won't do that. And that's where I end this. Because no matter how much I loved her, no matter how much I denied, how much I was hated, how much pain people wanted to put me through and literally kill me, it has taken me a year to accept it, but I am the fool. But tomorrow, I hope to wake up being able to say, you know what? I used to be an idiot yesterday, but today is a new day. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Daniel M. Rhesus, and I sign off to you in a positive light that if you are faced with unsurmountable circumstances, an unbelievably impossible hill to climb, and factors that are impossible to overcome, please understand, you must look in the mirror and make a final decision. And once you've made that decision, take the leap. I promise you, it's not going to get worse, especially if you believe in yourself and you believe in the power of good. And I do. I'm a positive person, no matter how much you want to slice it. I'm a good guy. I don't really give a shit how many people want to criticize me. I know that sometimes I have to look in the mirror and Stuart Smalley this shit and say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. Or gosh darn it, I can do it. I think one of them's a Ladybugs mix. But I want to end this video by clearly and openly stating that I do not make any accusations until all the facts have come forward, and what I have presented is a juxtaposition in a legal sense. And the paradoxes that are presented raise so many red flags that at this point, I'm pretty sure that somewhere in Cuba, there's about a 25-year-old kid with long hair. And I hope that's true, and I'll tell you why. Imagine if you're a parent and you find out under some circumstances your child is actually alive. Now that would be an absolute miracle. And I hope that everyone understands that it is very difficult to film this kind of content, and I'm taking a lot of chances with both my life, my liberties, and everything else in order to express that I am a victim of some of the worst, most sinister corruption scandal ridden facts that are presented by the courts. I didn't think it was so bad until I saw Jamie, by pure association to me, being the victim of the same exact thing. This girl didn't even do anything. She's not exposing anyone. Yet she's eating worse shit than me for no reason. And that's when I realized that everything's about me. No one gives a shit about Jamie. They just want to hurt me. And that's why they never will. My emotional state is clear. I will not give a single second of my love to anyone who wants to use it against me. And like Right Said Fred said, I'm too sexy for this song. Because, look, love is not going to leave me. Human beings need to be consciousable about, for example, this video. You might believe this is a rant, you might believe this is a run-on, but I want to end the night. I don't want to keep filming content. I want to express to everyone that the concept of human beings such as yourself judging me while not having any medical degree, no knowledge of the facts, and voluntarily watching my content, meaning no one's forcing you to watch it. You watch the content, you watch me talk, you say, you know what, this guy's completely insane. Yet I designed the content for that. You are supposed to criticize me. That is the whole point of all of this. The ability to take criticism while knowing that not only are you right, but what you're doing is helping people release their pain and their anxiety and say, this guy Dan is completely crazy. Or there are others of you who have looked at me as completely crazy for 5 to 7 years and are now starting to realize that my insanity is based on your inconsistencies. I am always the same. Always remember, my name is Daniel M. Rhesus. And tonight, my tagline is, please, get some rest, drink a little bit of water, because the real craziness is starting tomorrow night after the fireworks. Stay tuned, and always remember, I'm a man of my word.